Experimental sounds. That's who we're talking about today, folks. We're talking about Experimental Sounds, which is a plugin company slash rack extension company I had never heard of until a couple of weeks ago when they reached out and offered me a chance to go through their entire lineup of plugins and instruments, which is pretty extensive, in the Reason shop, and go through and pick out the ones I wanted. So that's what I did. And let me tell you, I'm glad they reached out because, spoiler alert, they're pretty good. Okay, so this is their website. Their branding is super on point. Experimental Sounds, spelled all different. They have a bunch of different plugins and a bunch of different instruments, all of which seem to be pretty 80s, 70s, and 80s influenced, classic style gear. This looks like a kind of a Neve type thing. It's a compressor, limiter, and filter type thing. Anyway, this is them in the shop. You can see that they have a ton of stuff. I picked out a few different things, and you're going to see. I was just messing around with their synths, and I wrote a little sketch that I will use as the basis for showing you what they have to offer. So let me play a little bit of this for you to give you an idea. Okay, so you get the idea. Just some mellow vibes. But all the instruments, except for these samples, these loops you can see in here, all the instruments are experimental sounds, and all the processing is experimental sounds. So let me show you. It starts with this bell thing. Actually, let's start with this vocal thing. Starts with this vocal thing, which is just a sample. I'm using, I didn't even mention that I'm using Ableton in the Reason rack for this one. Yeah. So all the processing on this vocal is experimental sounds. The first thing is this tape emulation they have. It's got like 4 different types of tape. I'm not going to go over everything. I don't know everything. I just got these myself. So yeah, this is a tape emulation. Obviously, it's going to add that tape sound, that tape compression a little bit when you push into the tape, and then also, and then that's gonna create distortion. It sounds really good, and I used it a lot in this little example. This is their filter delay. Kind of enough said there. You know how filter delays work. One key thing about it though is, and about almost, I think all of them, is that they have a drive circuit. That sounds really good. So if I take these off, and then the last one is this this low pass. This low pass is old school style, like it's stepped. So not so much for sweeping, but if you put a peak on it, then there's a bump at the cutoff point. So you're kind of emphasizing that portion of the frequency spectrum. You can emphasize it a lot or a little or not at all, but a little sounds nice. And the drive that comes from the drive circuit at the input stage. So if I take these all off, the vocal has a delay on it, but it's quite mono. So if I turn the delay on, you hear it goes from mono to wide. When this one comes in, this delay sounds really nice. I'll add the tape in too, so you can hear the grit that it adds. Nice. And then this probably is doing the most to make it sound cool, taking off all the high end, and again with that peak. Just has vibes, and you can see the light turning red, both the lights turning red. Actually, all three of the lights turning red, because I'm driving the signal 3 different times in 3 different ways. So yeah, you're getting lots of character and vibes. And in fact, those 2 words probably really describe the experience using these plugins. Lots of character, lots of vibe. Okay, so moving on. We also did like a reverse reverb into that. You know how those go. The interesting part about that is this LFO tool. It's not experimental sounds, but it's just worth noting. If you take even the Polar, I can't remember what it's called, but the LFO deal in Reason, set it to a square wave, and then have it fade in. That little stutter, that's what that's from. Anyway, the next interesting thing in the track is this bell, and it's one of their instruments. It's their FM synthesizer. So it looks like it's an FM synth with 4 operators, and I'm sure all kinds of routing. Like you can see the different algorithms here. I'm sure you can select different algorithms, blah, blah, blah. Old school synth. Sounds awesome. That's where all that metallic, obviously FM synthesis is known for making those metallic sounds, those bell sounds. So that's what we got here. And then it's being processed with their compressor limiter combo. So without it. So you can hear I really put the squeeze on this sound. I wanted it to sound more distant, actually. It sounds more close without squeezing it, squashing it with the compression, and taking away some of the attack. Just subdues it. So we also have all this percussion going on. It's got minimal processing on it for the most part. All of the processing it does have on it for the most part is experimental sounds, but we can skip over this for now. The next thing that comes in is this bass. And this is also from Experimental Sounds. This is their subtractive synth, their regular, straightforward subtractive synth. Sounds really cool for this bass. The Experimental Sounds ES01 is playing the low octave. And I use this EQ, this is their EQ again, to just take out the lows. You can see that here. Take out the lows and, not to take out the lows, sorry, wrong dial. To accentuate the lows at 75. See, I turned them up here, and that's 75. And then looks like we're taking out all the highs. See, I have this all the way down and all the way down So we're basically making sure that this is just a bass, a sub sound. And then if we bring this subtractor back in and turn this down, it's playing the higher octave. And it's just going through the tape. If I turn this off. The other thing that I have going on this upper octave for the bass is that I'm taking the lower frequencies all the way out with this EQ. So, you know, just the opposite of the other bass. This is something I do on almost all my songs. Control the bass by separating the mid bass from the sub bass. Together. The other thing of note are these blues. They're coming out of grain. It's just a sample of bloop. That's all it is. And then, of course, I use this button right here to have it spread across my keyboard in key. And then this is a good example of this plugin. Without it, with it. So it's adding the delays, it's adding a little bit of filter action, although I'm not sure about that because this output thing is down. So maybe not. Again, I'm not 100% sure exactly how this plugin works. But for sure, you can hear the reverb that it's adding. So yeah, it's just adding some space and vibe to the sound. And then EQ and compression. Darkens it with the EQ, and then adding punch with the compression and bringing up the delays. So yeah, they're plugins. I mean, I'm mixing a whole track here, and it's coming together. Really impressive stuff. The other thing is these violins, which are samples. They are being processed also by Ekssperimental Sounds. This is a really cool unit, old school tape echo. Only thing, well, it's probably because it's modeled after a piece of kit. There is no dry wet, it's full wet. And I have this low pass filter. This actually these filters are amazing. They add a lot of vibe. Again, not sweeping it, just using it to accentuate 5K a little bit. Oh, and take out everything above it. Without it. With it. Just vibey. This Ouroboros again. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. This is a new one. They have an 80s style reverb. Digital, algorithmic, I'm sure, reverb. Without it. The sample has a little reverb in it already, but I wanted to add some to it. Without. With. A little more drama. This tape again, I'll just show you with and without. And then I'll take this echo out. This is probably affecting the sound the most. The sample had some delays, but this is adding more space and depth. I'll jack it so you can really hear it. You can hear the distortion in there too. And then I put this on yet again, another low pass, higher somehow than the other one. I guess the distortion from this was adding a little bit more of that crunch back in, so I wanted to take it back out and also drive it again. Without it. And I also raised the output to get it to the right level. So yeah, all this stuff together. Let's do like all of it. And then put it back in. Nice. So next comes in the kick. I don't think I have any experimental sounds going on this kick, but I do have something I want to show you. Just how punchy this compressor can make a kick. This is the compressor that's modeled after that's built into the SSL in Reason, and also is available here in the Reason rack. Without it, the kick, I was eating the mic. Without it, the kick is kind of flubby and a little bit long. And that just tightens it right up, which is what I wanted. A nice tight kick, because I have all these sustained bass notes. Yeah, that compressor though. And then the last thing that comes in is this. And this, okay, so this is probably the synth of theirs I'm the most excited about. This looks like it's like some sort of hybrid between an FM synth and a subtractive synth. Because I see operators, so it's FM, and I see that the operators are kind of hard synced to certain other operators, and then you can route them to certain envelope generators. So that's straight up FM. I see a multi-mode filter. See some ring modulation. It just seems like there's a lot of vibes. Oh, and effects at the bottom. It just seems like there's a lot of options here to make not every sound, but certain types, including this really cool sounding square thing. Let's see what Ouroboros is doing this time. Oh yeah. Adding some dirt and grit. And then this is something I haven't showed you yet. This is probably another one of their more exciting plugins for me. It's a distortion playground. It looks like you can change each one of these units to be a different distortion type, and you can work them in series and just distort to your heart's content with dry wet, with a limiter at the end. Jeez. Input gain, I'm sure there's a drive circuit on there too. Yeah, wow. It looks like you can just use the guitar amp if you want. Wow. Yeah, this Sadist looks pretty awesome. And then the low pass again, just with that sweetening kind of vibe. Tape. I mean, this tape is awesome. Again, EQing, taking out bass because this is not a bass sound, and adding some mids because this is definitely a mid sound. And compression, limiting, although I'm not really limiting. So yeah, I think that's all the sounds. My clap is probably dry. Yep. It usually is. I don't know why I do that. A little bit of EQ, but I don't think there's any reverb. Nope. I do that a lot. I keep my clap or my snare super dry. I don't know why. I feels like I need it to be in my face. Sounds good to me. So yeah, overall, I think Experimental Sounds really has a bunch of interesting rack extensions. The synths, especially if you're making any kind of 80s music, are right up your alley. But of course, all those synths are good for all types of music. And these ones definitely have vibes. I use that word a lot today. And then the plugins are ultra usable. The, synths are a taste thing, kind of, I guess. But these are kind of undeniably highly usable. For me, the standouts are the tape, the Sadist, and these filters. Oh, and the EQ, but you can get an EQ anywhere. It's mostly fun to use this EQ because it's limiting, and that can be inspiring. It's not a must-have for me. These, however, kind of are. I'm rambling. I'm obviously happy with these. One more thing I wanted to show you. I actually started from a different place when I wrote this. Started here, seems to happen to me a lot, and ended there. But I wanted to show you because I use some more instruments here. That's the reason. So this is their subtractive synth again. I did this little pitch bendy thing. The key to the sound is this filter again, though. So if you listen to it without it, here we'll go to the middle. It's a bright-ish, crunchy-ish sound, but it doesn't have that that I really wanted. That I don't know how to describe it, but that's the sound. I don't know if I'm doing it right. But this gives it that kind of resonance, I guess is the word you would use. That's what I was looking for. And I knew that was going to give it to me. So yeah. I think that's the only new thing I really wanted to show you. I guess there's this, which is coming out of, this is another instrument to show you. So yeah, this is important. This is their other synth that I got from them. So it looks like there's a single oscillator with pulse width modulation, hard sync, 2 LFOs, ring modulation. Yeah, these are pretty deceivingly deep. And then an effects section. Wow. Really went for it. Impressive stuff. And of course, again, the GUIs are looking awesome. Not half as good without the distortion. Good stuff. Do we have one more? What is this coming out of? Same instrument, different patch. Oh, I didn't really show you, but all their instruments come with a ton of patches. So this one comes with all these. I mean, a ton. Like all of them are like this. If not, they have multiple folders. So yeah. Shout out to Ekssperimental Sounds for sending those plugins over. That was really fun, just messing around with some new stuff. And I'm really impressed with your stuff, guys. And yeah, you guys know where to go to grab this stuff. If you want, go to the Reason shop. On a side note, if you do find good stuff in rack extension form, buy it in rack extension form. My songs that have rack extensions in them instead of VSTs or whatever, they always open. And that's kind of a big deal especially if you're a newbie and you're thinking about what you want to get. If there's a rack extension version of it and you're happy with Reason, and even if you're not happy, think you might change down the line, you can bring the rack with you, which is key. And the rack will always open.